So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
What's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefers?
Yeah, man.
Mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters. We are live and we are your audio digest of Canadian and international cannabis news. This week, Kim Cooper and myself, Al Graham, will talk about and discuss the news that came out during the week of April the 10th to April the 16th, 2018. Hello, Kim. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. Al, pulling through, and enjoying the day off that most of Ontario had today, whether it would be for school or many people home from workplaces and everything else with today's lovely ice storm.
That's right. Many of us, including ourselves, they couldn't get the 420 airliner off the ground due to the ice storm that's going on out there. But we come up with an alternative, didn't we, Kim?
We most certainly did. We plowed our way through the ice storm. We made it through the other end, and we're here now. Better late than never, but we're still here.
The show must go on.
There you go.
All right. To quote Freddie Mercury, he's got a good song. All right. So, well, let's get going. We're going to start off up in the capital of Canada, where the Senate is discussing cannabis legalization.
Once again into the Senate and the House. Conservative senators are taking issue with the provision in Canada's cannabis legalization bill that allows recreational cannabis to be grown in residence, and some of them are calling for new measures.
Yeah, but unfortunately, if you do that, removing it would remove the home-growing cannabis part of things where the companies that are out there, the businesses, the people who create small business jobs, they are going to lose out on a multi-million-dollar, line of business if the Senate allows something or passes something like this or forces the amendment, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just another branch, another arm to the entrepreneurial spirit in this country. That the driving force that's pushing this legalization forward is the growing sector of new enterprises that are coming up with legalization. A large portion of that is, of course, the growing segment. People are anxious to cultivate gardens, even small gardens of 4 plants. They require time. They require, different elements to get these off the ground, whether it's pots, soil, nutrients, seeds, lights. The list goes on and on and on and on for segments of the population that are getting involved in this. And that is a huge bite of industry.
That's right. Amazingly, I'm seeing here in this article that was at mjbizdaily.com, it says that one of the licensed producers, Aurora, actually supports the individual's rights to grow.
Yeah. And that's kind of surprising. But I mean, given the cap number of 4 plants per household, not per person, per household, 4 plants is not going to take a chunk out of the LP's pocket, so to speak. So I can see them being unconcerned about 4 plants per household.
Well, they also can benefit from it too.
Like anybody else that wants to grow.
Yeah, they'll be able to benefit from it because they'll be able to they're more likely going to end up dealing with cuttings and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. They're talking about, well, buy your plants from us, buy your starting materials from us, this and that and the other thing. So it's an avenue for them to increase sales on their end as well. So they're willing to work with that. So that part of it was nice to see.
That's right. Well, if they go ahead and try to take the provision out, what's going to change? People are still going to still grow cannabis. People are still going to do it. Just makes things bigger for the black market if that's, it goes against what they're trying to do.
Yep. Well, Justin Cooper from Green Planet Wholesale is quoted in this article saying, people are going to grow their own cannabis at home post-legalization, whether it's in the Cannabis Act or not. So it's better that the government establish some sort of rules and regs for doing so responsibly beforehand.
Yeah. Well, Senator Vernon White, he wants the homegrown provision removed completely from the Cannabis Act before it becomes law. He's expressing concerns about access from children, air quality risks in rental units, and he's also concerned, he believes that the 4-plant limit will allow people to supply the black market.
Obviously, ill-informed 4-plant limit's not going to be able to do anything for the black market. You're barely going to get enough to sustain your own needs if you're any kind of a regular user, medicinal or otherwise. 4 plants are not going to produce enough of anything to get anybody through the time it takes to grow 4 plants. It's not going to sustain the level. It just won't. So he's ill-informed on that aspect. As far as it having issues in a multi-dwelling unit like in a condo, or issues with an apartment, molds, and all of this kind of stuff that people are ranting and raving, I go back once again to people's regular house plants. I've said this over and over and over again. I know some avid houseplant growers out there. Some people that I know are really, really into their houseplants, no matter what they are. They have jungles in their living room, full-grown trees, benches with, 15 plants on them in front of the window, and they're just everywhere. You can't make a move without a branch hitting you in the face that belongs to some sort of a plant. I mean, there's going to be less cannabis plants in an apartment than there is regular house plants at this time. And that is currently not an issue for them. So neither will this be an issue.
Not only does Senator Vernon White bring up the concerns about the children, another senator brings it up, Rose May Poirier. She says if the bill is to protect young Canadians from the harms of cannabis, how is exposing kids to cannabis plants in their homes protecting them? Well, we sell alcohol in licensed establishments to protect the children as well, and we get adults make their own alcohol at home. So
okay, well, number one, as a plant, the plant is growing. It's not harming anybody. Nobody's getting anything off of it. You're not getting stoned because the plant is growing in the window. It's not having any effect on the child whatsoever, any more than an aloe vera or a tree. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's a plant and it's growing. It has zero effect on any situation, whether it's a child in the home or not. It's only after the plant is harvested, dried, and then consumed that you have something that you have to be looking at. As far as children goes, well, that's at that point you're talking about packaging and everything else, and now you're talking about a completely different thing than a living plant, aren't we?
Yeah. So basically, yes, they are. So basically, we're looking at we have to go through these committees still, and then they'll decide on what kind of amendments that they may want. I wouldn't be. I really expect there to be some amendments. So there's a good chance that this will be going back to the House of Commons before it even gets to Royal Assent.
Yeah, I can see this being plagued with issues all the way through. I don't know how. I still do. I can't wrap my head around how they say they're going to get this passed. There's way too many things coming up that a lot of these senators simply haven't understood to this point, refuse to wrap their head around. They're completely uneducated at this point. Some of the things they're bringing up are nonsensical. Other things do make sense and need to be looked at that this government has not looked at. The plan as it is, it's doomed to fail. I said that from the beginning. I don't see how they're going to push this through. They say they are. I guess we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll just wait and see to see what happens.
Yeah.
So it is a matter of time.
Yeah.
And well, we're much closer than we've been in the last 100 years, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're much closer than we have been in a very long time. And and it's an exciting time to be alive for sure. But the intricacies still need to be worked out so very, very much.
All right. Well, from one story that's incomplete, let's go on to another one that's just starting to gain momentum, and that's in the province of Ontario. They've revealed the first for cannabis shops where people will be able to go up and buy cannabis from the government.
Yeah, four have been renounced for province of Ontario. Woohoo! The largest province in Canada, and we've got a whole whopping 4 stores being announced. One of them is affecting good old Northern Ontario. Got to bring that in on the map. Woo, woo. Thunder Bay, you have been chosen. You are one of the chosen ones. You will get a store along with a couple others in Southern Ontario.
Yeah, Guelph and Kingston of getting stores, as well as a location, I believe it's in Toronto, and that is Bill Blair's riding.
Yeah, there's going to be one at Gerrard and Victoria Park. Oh, I know the area so well. Yes,
you do.
Gerrard and I do. I'm a Torontonian girl, grown up down there my whole life. I didn't come north until just over 18 years ago. So very, very familiar with the area of Gerrard Street and Victoria Park. Yeah, should be an interesting location for a store and not without its own controversy.
It sure has, because there's some people who have some questions. And one person who's asking these questions is the Premier, Kathleen Wynne. She has some questions for, guess who? The government of Ontario.
So the Premier of Ontario is asking the government of Ontario how the hell this happened, basically.
And what has happened? Well, they have put this in a strip mall that has a martial arts studio in it, as well as a tutoring location, and is a hangout for 3 local schools.
Yeah, high school students from the area hang out in this mall. It's a known mall where students go. The education center there is listed as a school, and the mall location has been chosen for one of the first pot shops to open up, operated by the province of Ontario, for the province of Ontario, within the guidelines that the province of Ontario has set out, which is 300 meters. From any school.
Okay, well, there's a pile of schools in Toronto, so that might be a bit of an issue. But I'm sure there's some businesses there that are probably happy about a cannabis store being located there. Maybe there's a pizza place there.
Yeah, pizza place next door. I've heard it's on the bus line as well. Some other people have chimed in on my site saying, oh, yeah, it's right on the bus line and the pizza joint's next door. Max Milk's across the street. It's all good. They love the location. So far, I've heard a lot of proponents saying it's a great spot.
Well, they say something here about it's a place where elementary and high school students go to at lunchtime to get food from McDonald's or Tim Hortons.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a busy little mall. Apparently one of the larger stores that has been sitting empty for a while seems to be the place that the new shop is going to occupy.
Yes, I know there was a hairdresser. She had some concerns. Customers were saying that they wouldn't go, they don't want to go to a place that has a cannabis store near it.
Yeah, the hairdresser has said that some of her clients have said, well, we're not going to be coming back once that store is open because we don't want to be anywhere near a store that sells that kind of stuff. And other people are saying, well, we're worried about the element of type of people that are going to be around and whether or not there's going to be, people hanging and milling about this place on a regular basis because it's open. I mean, to me, all of these concerns are just ludicrous. They really are. Would you be having these same concerns and same questions if it was a liquor store opening?
Right, exactly. My thoughts too, because it just it's the fear of the unknown. People just think that all of a sudden it's going to become an attraction for people who are bad to society. I don't know.
Unsavory, Al. We're unsavory people. We're the bad element that they don't want in their neighborhoods. I mean, this is still the perception that many have, sadly. Meanwhile, it's you and I and their next door neighbor that they talk to every day. They're just completely blissfully unaware that
yeah.
that we're consumers, you know.
I see here in the Toronto Star article that the schools are saying that they weren't consulted about this. Now, I don't know if the schools, whether the government is required to consult with the schools or not, or they sort of look at it as a complimentary thing that,
yeah,
when's coming.
I don't see how the school would have any say one way or another where a government shop is going to open up. I mean, this is basically a government-run store operated on the same basis as the LCBO, which is our government liquor store, and the schools don't get to say where they open. Why would they have a say in this? They have to lay out the guidelines saying where they're allowed to be, and nobody really has a say.
Well, one of the, I'm going to say, school trustees over there says that they're disappointed that they weren't consulted at all. And if they were, they would have consulted with the parents on this. Apparently, they did at a meeting afterwards, which they said the parents were against that. Well, I don't know. You'd almost have to go around and get permission from everybody, wouldn't you?
Isn't that what we have a law for?
You're not going to please everybody, no matter where a store goes.
Well, that's right. That's why we have our laws. We're enacting this law. We're saying it's legal. These parents need to get over themselves. You don't get to decide where sex shops open. You don't get to decide where, liquor stores open. You don't get to decide where bars open. You do not get to decide where this opens.
No. So it'd be interesting to see if anybody tries to start a petition to try to change that.
That's right. Oh, we'll have to wait and see. Wait and see with Ontario and Canadian laws.
Hey, that's right. The times are changing.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Okay, talking about staying tuned, we head over to Nova Scotia as we stick here in Canada for a bit. We see there the courts have overturned a human rights decision over medical cannabis?
Yeah, interesting. Interesting situation as soon as my computer allows me to load.
It's all right. Well, the Nova Scotia Court of Appeal has overturned a provincial human rights board decision that said an injured man's legally prescribed medical cannabis must be covered by his union's insurance policy. So that means that this fella is losing out on his rights to have his medical cannabis covered. Uh-oh, did we lose Kim? I think we have. All right, well, let's see. Gordon Skinner of yeah, okay. Sounds like let's take a break, and we'll be right back. Let's see. I'm sure after break, Kim will have her Canada history moment, and we're also going to hear a bit of a news report from an NBC report about refugees. Then that would be cannabis refugees, just so you know. And then we're going to hear something about Mr. Weedman by Lost Marijuana. You are listening to the Reefer Reporters. We are live here at LifestyleRadio.net.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Since Colorado legalized the sale of marijuana 1 year ago, attention has focused mainly on the boom in recreational pot sales. But a growing number of people are actually moving to Colorado to gain access to a special kind of medical marijuana. Our report tonight from NBC's Harry Smith.
We need to change the perspective and what people think of cannabis.
They call themselves medical refugees. Some 200 families have moved to Colorado for something they can only get here. A rare type of medical marijuana.
Howdy, I'm Harry.
Nice to meet you.
Including 10-year-old Braden Fleming, who has epilepsy.
You're a handsome young man.
Thank you.
His family came from Houston to Colorado Springs just to be on the waiting list to get a medicine called Charlotte's Web.
Several people's response was, who does that? Who picks up their life and just moves? But those were people that don't have a child with epilepsy.
Braden suffers from DOSA syndrome, marked by small and uncontrollable seizures. He had one in the middle of our conversation.
Or I watch baseball.
Was that one right there?
Charlotte's Web is a strain of marijuana low in THC, the psychoactive ingredient, but high in CBD, a mystery compound believed to have healing properties.
CBD is something that has captured the national imagination, political imagination, the furor of the medical community.
Dr. Edward Ma is a Denver neurologist studying Charlotte's Web. He warns it doesn't reduce seizures for everyone.
20 to 30% are having a pretty dramatic reduction, and it just tails off from there.
Good job, buddy.
Well aware of the odds, the Flemings moved here anyway.
How happy would you be if you could live your life every day and not have any seizures anymore?
I would love that. It'd feel like I'm in heaven, probably.
Amen.
Just before Christmas, Braden started taking Charlotte's Web. Now the Flemings wait to see if it works. Harry Smith, NBC News, Colorado Springs.
And that's just part of Harry's much broader look at the pot industry in Colorado. It's called Marijuana Country, the cannabis boom. It will air this.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing? Not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reefer Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with cannabis and coffee with Tamarawana. Then tune in and catch Pottawa with Russell Barth, who calls himself the world's angriest pothead. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca.
Bring me some, 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 some. Bring me some, 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 some. Bring me some, 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 some. Bring me some, 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 some. Mr. Weed Man, bring me some weed. Bring me the greenest that I ever seen. I'll roll it up with Uncle Pooh papers. I'll fire it up and you can catch the vapors. Weed Man, the more thugs for me.
All right, we're back from our break and our quick medication session, and we've got Kim back here as well. And before we get to the news, we're going to have Kim's new segment all about Canada history. What's up today, Kim?
Well, today we're going to go back in time to April 2011. Quite a few years ago, 7 now. Ontario Superior Court judge ruled that federal medical marijuana program is unconstitutional, giving government 3 months to fix the problem before pot is effectively legalized everywhere.
Obviously they met that deadline.
Not really, but, it is the government. Things did not quite work out the way we were hoping they were going to work out in this particular ruling and this particular trial. Yes, I'm talking about one and only marijuana man, Mr. Matt Myrna. This was his court ruling when he was found growing cannabis for medical use without a prescription from a doctor.
Which led to a long battle before the courts.
It most certainly did. Mr. Paul Lewin was his lawyer in this case that was effectively changed a lot of the laws that we have today.
Yeah. And the laws are still changing, aren't they? Here we are all these years later.
Yeah, all these years later, and we're still evolving. It was Justice Taliano declared the program to be invalid, as well as criminal laws prohibiting possession and production of cannabis. He suspended his ruling for 3 months, giving Ottawa until mid-July to fix the program or face the prospect of effectively legalizing possession and production of cannabis in the province of Ontario.
You know, that was sort of like when you think back to the Parker decision too. The government had 12 months to come up with a medical marijuana program, or cannabis was going to be legal across Canada.
Yeah, that's right. Mr. Myrna, his body of evidence apparently was from himself and other patient witnesses was very troubling to Taliano. The evidence of patients' witnesses, which I accept, showed that patients have to go through extraordinary lengths to acquire the marijuana that they need.
They sure did. So what did the government do to fix it?
In the end, not too much. We wound up with the MMAR program, and we're still evolving today.
That'd be the MMPR?
MMPR program, sorry. Oh, my bad. Thank you, Al. The MMPR program evolved out of the MMAR program after that, which is now the ACMPR program. And with legalization on the horizon, we are sure to see it evolve once again.
Well, it just sounds like a bunch of alphabetical soup to me.
Yes, that's about it. Alphabetical soup is a really good way to put it.
A little bit of alphagetti in there, I'd say. Okay. Talking about going back in time, we got to go back before the break, just before we lost you there. And we were just about to discuss about a Nova Scotia court decision that overturns human rights for medical cannabis.
Yeah, before we do that, I want to make one other little point about my moment in history. One, Mr. Matt Myrna, we're discussing his trial here on that. He will also be a guest of mine on an upcoming broadcast of the Pace Radio Show. So be sure to tune in this Wednesday, and we will discuss this particular milestone in Matt's life, as well as some new stuff that's on the horizon for 2018 with Matt Myrna this Wednesday on Pace.
Good. Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. So yes, we have a ruling coming up in Nova Scotia.
Yes. As I was saying just for the break, the Nova Scotia Court of Appeal overturned a provincial human rights board decision that allowed an injured man to get his medical cannabis.
Yeah, it's kind of
covered by his union insurance policy.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of what we've been seeing in other courts. I mean, this went to the Human Rights Tribunal and it was deemed a right. So it's a bit of an upsetting turn of events in Nova Scotia.
It sure is. You know, they didn't have a provincial judge here to overrule that decision because they say that the representatives from the plan argued there was simply no coverage for prescription drugs not approved by Health Canada. Well, that's a farce. Other companies are doing it.
Yep, that's right.
All they have to do is request that this get added. You know, like Sun Life, that's how theirs is.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And that's exactly what they're doing now. They're saying in many different places, they're just saying, you know, well, it's up to the employer. If you want this added into your coverage, we're willing to add it into the coverage at X number of dollars per year. Tell us you want it added on and we'll add it on. I don't see the issue.
No, exactly. Well, obviously the judge agreed and the judge says that there was no discrimination as defined under the Human Rights Act. That had little to do with that. So, but then back in 2017, in February, the Human Rights Board of Inquiry agreed, and
Well, hopefully this gets appealed to one more court, and this is not the end of it. You know, there's a higher court above this judge. Personal bias, I think, may be having a hand in this. I really don't have an explanation when somebody can disregard the Human Rights Tribunal's ruling in such a blatant manner. It just kind of defies description.
Yeah. it just seems to be bouncing around from court to court. Like, is this thing just going to go right to the Supreme Court of Canada? That way we just find out once and for all that we can get, coverage.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems to be the way. Every fight that we've had along the way, we'll win 2 battles, we lose 1, and then it goes up the ladder again, and it's either our side or their side that's appealing the previous ruling until it finally does land in the Supreme Court of Canada, much like Smith did. You and I were both there for that. That was the final leg of the journey. I think we're going to see that replayed throughout aspects of cannabis law.
Yeah, I think so too. We're going to have a continuous bumpy road for a while as new things come across and people have to deal with different situations.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Well, let's hopefully this continues on. They appeal it and it goes to the Supreme Court of Canada. And if it does, we will keep everybody informed.
Once again. Evolving situation.
Wait for this. Yeah, well, hey, it's good to know. Good to know. We'll catch you. We'll let you know what's going on.
That's it. We'll keep you posted as the situation changes.
Yeah. Okay, Kim, what's next?
Next, I think we're going to talk about some rodents that might be around some stuff recently. Some
rodents?
Yeah.
Like, this is good. Come on, how can anybody accuse mice of eating half a ton of cannabis that's stored in a warehouse?
500 kilograms of cannabis disappeared from a police warehouse in Argentina. Officers were left scratching their heads, wondering why. This defies explanation. It couldn't be. We're going to have to look into this. And after looking into it, they declared with a might, it was the mice that did it. We found rat droppings, so we think the mice ate 500 keys.
Oh, well, let's just say mice wouldn't mistake food. The cannabis for food, according to a judge. And even if they did, a large group of mice hadn't eaten it, there'd be a lot of corpses found. So he believes that all this cannabis went missing with a couple of the police officers.
Yes, and in the end, one police officer has been fired from duty and been charged with theft of property from the property storehouse where this cannabis was being kept. The mice have gotten a reprieve. They will not be charged or fined for their participation, and they think perhaps they now have the right guy.
Yeah. The stuff had been stored there for 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years it's in storage. The officer in question was apparently witnessed going into the secure storeroom while not on duty, and then with further investigation found out that he had been removing property over the course of the 2 years, and it had totaled up to 500 kilograms worth of cannabis from the official storeroom at the police station.
There you go, eh? Jeez, poor mice getting blamed for everything. No wonder they go looking for the cheese.
The mice did it.
The mice, yeah. All right, well, going from a story that has a bit of a chuckle, let's go to one that appears to be pretty serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The story is troubling to say the least. I've seen the video in question for this story. I have my own opinions on that. We'll get into during our discussion, I'm sure. As many people know, there's been a heart-wrenching verdict in a case that is now declared that cannabis is the cause of a man's psychosis that caused him to attack with a bat.
Yes, he was attacking, I believe it was some people who just, they looked like people that were recently admitted to Canada as refugees, and they went at him with a bat, did they not? You said?
Yeah. The video was released and it was widely viewed on many social media channels across Canada and the United States. The man that was the perpetrator of this attack is a lawyer in Toronto, Mark Phillips. He basically seems like your average lawyer guy, hardworking guy, this and that, under a lot of pressure in the city of Toronto to do what he's supposed to do as a lawyer. He has admitted to consuming drugs, and he put his rage-induced fit on the fact that he was high on drugs, namely cannabis, at the time of his induced rage. And he had tried to get a doctor and claimed that his psychosis was induced to a cannabis state from being stoned on marijuana.
Yeah. Actually, I'm mistaken there. Wasn't somebody recently just new to Canada? It says that the fellow and his wife and teenage son and a family friend were speaking Spanish in a parking lot in the mall when the lawyer come along, approached them, and told them to stop speaking French.
Yeah.
And then he came at them with a bat, yelling repeatedly, screaming. There goes ISIS, yelling ISIS at them.
Yeah, he was claiming them to be jihadist and screaming ISIS and all kinds of rhetoric stuff, saying that that's, they needed to be dealt with. The whole thing was captured on video. As I said, you could clearly see the man was in a psychotic rage. There's absolutely no question as to that. The question now lies is what was that caused from? Because he didn't claim this defense of being in a drug-induced rage, there were no blood tests done to check his blood levels for said narcotics within any kind of appropriate amount of time frame to determine one way or another what he was taking.
Like, was he a regular cannabis consumer? Was this a quick one-time incident, or was there maybe possibly something else involved? What do you think?
Well, personally, I've seen the video. I know what cocaine-induced rage looks like, and I can tell you I've seen it before, and that's exactly what I saw on that tape. The man, under my impression, my opinion, there was absolutely no question he was either on cocaine or crack, which is a derivative of cocaine. To me, there's no question in my mind that that's what the driving force was behind his rage.
Yeah, because this is almost reminds me of the Reefer Madness stories where the person consumed some cannabis and they went in a rage and started murdering people.
Yeah, and that's what I saw on that tape. That was not anything produced from any cannabis ever that I have seen in my 40 years of consumption. Never once have I ever seen anybody act in such a manner, even closely resembling that in any way, shape, or form. I have seen people act in that same manner while intoxicated on cocaine.
Yeah. Oh, I remember seeing it on the news, and him swinging his bat at them and all that, and then thinking, and now they turn around and say it was caused because the guy smoked some cannabis. Like, this doesn't sound like the guy had a long history. I'm not seeing anything here in this Globe Mail article saying this guy had a long history of using cannabis. It's almost as if it seemed as if it was his first time or just a recent experience, and all of a sudden he's doing this, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't buy it for a second. I mean, the guy's a lawyer. The guy's a lawyer. Of course, he's going to come up with a creative defense that's going to allow him to walk. If he didn't come up with a creative defense like this that allowed him to walk, then he isn't much of a lawyer. That's for fucking sure. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me one bit that this is this guy's defense and that he's got it down so well. And then, given that he's a lawyer, he's got friends in the court. And I'm sorry, but I'm positive that had influence in this case.
Well, hey, we had a story in the past where they were talking about the TCC. The lady working for TCC wasn't allowed cannabis oil. They're doing drug testing and all that. Maybe it's time to look at doing some lawyers. And talking about drug testing.
Mm-hmm.
I see somewhere. Where are we here? In Madison, in Milwaukee, they wanted to have a new bill that would protect employees by forbidding drug testing for THC.
Yeah, I love this bill. My computer is glitching out. I don't have it up on my system, but I can speak to it because I did read it. It's an excellent bill. They say that because of legalization in so many states around Milwaukee and around in that area, that if they are drug testing for THC, they can't be because it's legal for adults to consume. So how can you possibly test for it in your workplace? I mean, finally, somebody that's making some sense.
Yeah, so they say the bill is an effort to reform Wisconsin's cannabis laws and aims to protect employers who may have had encounters with cannabis in legal states. Employers wouldn't be allowed to fire or not hire an employee for testing positive for THC.
That's right. So you're away on vacation in a legal state like Nevada, like I just was. If I was living in a non-legalized state in the U.S. and I visit Nevada, I consume while I'm in Nevada on vacation. I come home and my workplace tests me. Well, I'm going to test positive because it stays in your system for 3 months, up to 3 months. So I'm going to test positive. That should not cause me to lose my job. And I think this is fabulous and finally forward-thinking legislation.
Well, they say that this is about making sure that they are protecting people from losing their jobs and losing their incomes from doing something that is actually legal, which makes perfectly sense to me.
Absolutely. So hats off, to Wisconsin for going the extra mile.
Yes, yeah. And talking about cannabis in the system.
Yeah.
I see here somebody here in Canada is talking about getting cannabis in their coffee systems.
Yeah, they're going to increase the buzz in your morning cup of joe. Second Cup wants to serve up a different kind of buzz, converting some of its coffee shops into cannabis dispensaries and legal pot lounges across Canada.
Yeah, they mentioned that, and their shares rose like 30%.
Immediately, day one. The press release came out, 31%. Their shares went up, boom, at the opening of the stock market. I mean, it shows you where this country's mindset is headed.
Well, this goes back to like the lounge argument. If they're going to allow Second Cup to have a license to serve cannabis where they're serving coffee, then they got to allow lounges the same right to be able to do that. This is sort of like, is this a preempted strike before it comes? Sort of like the Shoppers Drug Mart and all that, requesting a license to dispense cannabis, but yet that isn't allowable under any present situation in law.
I know. And it's amazing to me that these kind of, corporations all seem to get that foothold in, we've got places like Abbey Roach and the Hot Box Cafe, right? Mm-hmm. Longest living vapor lounge in the city of Toronto. It's been open for 18 years. She should be able to get a license, but she can't even apply for one because there is no such law. Shoppers Drug Mart, like you say, they're applying to distribute cannabis. Well, there's no such law saying that they're allowed to distribute cannabis. So how can you apply for something that doesn't exist yet? Now we've got the Second Cup, another corporation. Are they getting a leg up on people like Miss Abbey Roach?
Could be. Well, according to the chairman, they say that cannabis is going to be an awful big business in Canada, and we have some amazing locations. I wish, or he wishes that he knew now, what's going to happen down the road, but they're anticipating lots of opportunities as legislation is formed. And then, that goes back to the Shoppers Drug Mart, and as you say, Abbey Roach, it's an opportunity. They got to allow other people in. They just can't.
You can't just hand this entire industry over to big corporate. And kick everybody else out, right? And that seems to be the wave.
Yeah, I wonder if Abby's talked to Second Cup to find out where they'll apply, because if these guys are getting their,
If there's a place
things
they
started.
can apply, then there's a place that Abby can apply.
Yeah, because they have connected, with with one of the growers in order to be able to supply them with cannabis. So, agreements are being made in behind the scenes. And as we reported last week, coffee is bad for your endocannabinoid system.
That's right. It's killing your endocannabinoid system. So why would you even want to mix it with coffee to start with? So, I mean, it's another one of them things, we don't want it sold with alcohol. Well, apparently we don't want it sold with coffee either.
Well, if they sold it with coffee, they'd be repairing the damage caused by the coffee.
Yeah. Here, have a coffee, kill your system. Here, have some pot and rebuild your system.
Rebuild your system. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, it's like when you go to doctors and you've been pretty sick. Sometimes you get a prescription to deal with your condition, and then you get another prescription or two to deal with the side effects of the prescription.
Yeah, that's right. And
So
before you know it, you're taking 10 pills a day, 15 pills a day, 20 pills a day. And it just keeps going up from there. I mean, it just gets ridiculous. There's this one and the next one and the next one and the next one. It just gets crazy for sure. Stick with the good stuff.
Yeah, yet again, we'll have to see what happens down the road.
Yeah, evolving situations happening across this country with legalization on the horizon. Nobody's really sure what's next, but people are still trying to make moves so that they are in the right position for when it does come.
Exactly, because yet again, according to their head man there, he says this is an opportunity where there is plenty of potential upside and no real downside. Jeez.
Yeah.
Imagine that, Here he's saying there's no downside, but yet there's all this big fear-mongering thing going on, by the government and others.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's fear-mongering all the way. Once again, trying to get rid of the little guy and so many footholds for big corporate, and we're getting left in the wind, and that's why we've got to keep an eye on these things.
For sure. Exactly. Well, talking about keeping an eye on things, what's this next story about, Kim?
Well, it seems even if you're keeping an eye on things, it may disappear before your eyes. YouTube, it seems, has been turning its back on a lot of cannabis and cannabis industry vocalists that they have on their stations.
For sure. The first I heard about this was over the weekend when I saw Sandra and Remo post that all his videos were gone.
Yeah, Remo.
I thought, what?
Yeah, all of his videos are gone. Pot TV video archive has been eliminated, as well as 420 Timmins sponsor, Mr. John Burfellow. A lot of his grow videos and so forth, and Rosen videos are disappearing across the board. YouTube is in the midst of a purge. If you are cannabis related or have cannabis related videos, good chance it's gone or on its way to being gone.
Yeah, it seems that YouTube has adjusted that, it may not just be cannabis, it could be all drug related content.
Yeah, it seems other things. I know people are reported about, magic mushroom growing and all of that kind of stuff. Anything that's got along those lines, holistic medicines, all kinds of people are getting hit.
Yeah, like who else was there? Well, with the Pot TV stuff, like this isn't these guys aren't people who just started. They've Remo's got probably about 150,000 followers.
Yeah,
and then all this stuff is gone. I'm sure Campus Culture with their Pot TV had hundreds of thousands of followers as well. Gone.
John Burfellow as well. I know for sure he's got 100,000 followers minimum. Big advocate, big on rosin, big on growing, been teaching people how to grow throughout the years, showing us all along the lines what works, what doesn't. Growing alongside of John Burfellow myself for 4 or 5 years now. Numerous videos gone across the board. It's a big hit for sure. Hopefully, they have them backed up somewhere and are able to relaunch in new locations in the future, and all of that wonderful information and art is not lost forever.
Oh, yeah, piles of educational information there for sure that's just been gone. Now, it looks like there may be a spot for people to go.
Yeah, there's a new channel out. It's WeedTube is where Mr. Burfellow has migrated to. It's a brand new platform called WeedTube. If you check on my pages on social media, you'll find a link to it. He's uploaded some of his grow videos there. Seems like a pretty stable platform. And given the name of it, I'm assuming all cannabis-related material is more than welcome.
Yeah, well, that's good. That they've got somebody who will look after that or take that on. It's either that or people who can get websites created have to maybe put it on their own website.
Yeah, people are going to have to migrate to their own sites. A lot of different news sites don't allow for video, the free ones. So, I mean, then you're going to be getting into people having to paying for paid sites and that kind of thing, and data and stuff like that. I mean, it's always a big issue. So, I mean, I can see with the way social media is going lately, there's been a lot of issues with Facebook. There's been a lot of issues with YouTube now. I've already even heard some people complaining about Instagram. Reddit's having issues as well. So I can see new platforms popping up and migrating up that are cannabis related or maybe cannabis centered, becoming more popular.
Yeah, for sure, because this isn't good. For anybody who hasn't heard anything about this, if you just go to herb.co, there'll be an article right there. That's where we're looking at this one. So nasty, no warning, no nothing. You're like, hey, sorry, you got 48 hours to remove your stuff, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
No, nothing like just gone.
Just gone.
Just gone. Boop.
Yeah, just gone. No warning, no nothing, no backup. So unless you had it downloaded somewhere, I pray to God all that, like I say, all that wonderful educational material, I hope it's just not lost forever.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, Kim, we're getting close here. We got a couple more stories to go.
Yeah, we're gonna whip through these couple quick. We're gonna run across the pond a little bit.
Yes, we are. We're gonna go south. We're gonna jump over the Gulf of Mexico and make our way to Mexico.
Yeah. We're gonna go down and talk about Mexico, where it's nice and warm right now. Let's talk about that. Rising lawlessness around Mexico, and that they say, Mexican courts and Mexican police and everything else is very, very busy. And, some of the people down there in government are starting to question the logicalness of using police forces to police cannabis.
Yes, the tourism minister has suggested that maybe Mexico should look at allowing certain areas, tourist areas such as Cancun, to allow them to consume or, have legal cannabis.
Yeah, they're saying, a lot of the police forces' resources are used on policing cannabis and cannabis laws down there. And a lot of it is happening in tourist areas where tourists are involved in this kind of thing. Is that really where they need to put their money and their resources at this time, given the state of affairs of things down there? I think police resources could probably be used in a much more, better fashion, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And, by doing that, it'll divert yet again, as part of a crime prevention thing. So what we're hearing here from our government, if they legalize it in at least two of the resorts.
Yeah, they're seeing turf wars and gang wars and all that kind of stuff down there. If they legalize it in the resorts and that kind of thing in the resort cities and kind of take that off of the police's radar, then all of those resources that are currently used to police cannabis can be put towards some of the real issues that they're having with down there.
Yes. Well, they say that despite all the the troubles you hear now and then, about 40 million people still visit Mexico, which is obviously good. But some things are happening. Recently, there's been an incident where a homemade explosives blast that injured 25 people on a ferry in Playa de Carmen.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is starting to affect the tourist areas. I mean, Mexico has done a fairly okay job of trying to keep it away from tourist areas, so it hasn't involved a lot of the tourist industry down there. But that's not happening so much anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can understand these ministers saying, well, we have to grab our resources where I can, and we have to really start looking at, are we spending our money wisely?
Well, they say keeping cannabis illegal was to give away money to the gangs, and by pushing to go to the legalization route, maybe take the money away from the gangs, and but I can still see that they would probably have a bit of a turf war even in the beginning.
Yeah, for the first little while until they get a hold of the situation and work out the bugs. But at least it's a step in the right direction. I mean, even as tourists, if you're going down there, if you're getting cannabis off of anybody, chances are eventually somewhere through the line, cannabis probably came through the hands of one of those gang members. So if they can eliminate that aspect of it and get out of the tourist industry and get cannabis away from that part of it, they're decreasing the money and they're freeing up resources for police to go and police the gangs where they should be instead of being in the tourist industry. So it's just a win-win.
Here's a little thing I didn't expect to see in this article here at Reuters. They said that the ex-president Vince Fox said Mexico must consider legalizing opium poppies.
Oh. Well, I didn't read that either, and I closed it already.
So it'd be interesting because I know early on when I ever heard about Mexico and legalization of cannabis, Vincent Fox was the one that was mentioning it. Now he's talking about opium poppies.
Wow, we'll have to keep another thing. We'll have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, very full of them.
We're gonna be busy.
Okay, Kim, let's switch to the last story of the evening here.
Sounds good, Al. We're coming back to Canada once again. Good old Ontario, and we're going to talk about some of our university. Somebody that we both know is listed in this next story.
Yes, we do. Desi's involved here, and this is Ryerson University is going to have to deal with cannabis. Not only normally they have to deal with binge drinking and safe sex awareness and all that. Now they're going to have to promote sensible use of cannabis.
Yeah, summer Government Canada prepares to legalize drug this summer. Local universities and colleges are confronting a wave of questions, they say, around how to deal with it on campus and what's the best way to talk to students about what will be happening next September with enrollment. From do we just outright forbid it, or do we make it part of the university experience?
Well, the school says that they're working on updating the current policies and practices that they will be ready to respond once cannabis is legalized. But they don't seem to be letting anybody know what's going on.
Yeah. Nobody really knows what they're going to do. Is it going to be a straightforward issue, or are they going to talk to it in a serious manner? Are they going to equate it to alcohol? Are they going to give it its own place? Nobody really is privy to what their new policies are going to be.
Yes, no, they don't. And Desi, who's a member of the advocacy group Canadian Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, she's currently studying at Ryerson, and she says that the universities need to take a harm reduction approach because zero tolerance hasn't worked.
Oh, and it never will. It's already part of the university lifestyle. It's already there.
Correct.
Nothing really changes except the fact where you can buy it is going to change.
Cannabis isn't something new to a university or a college student.
I don't understand why everybody thinks everything is going to change with legalization. I don't see the future being full of all of these changes and question marks that everybody else seems to see in our future. They're already there. We're not talking about a brand new drug that's coming onto the market here that nobody has ever experienced before. We're not talking about a brand new element into our society. It's already here. We've already been dealing with this. It's already part of the university experience. The only thing that's going to change is where we buy it.
Yeah, well, she doubts, Desi doubts that cannabis will be allowed on the campuses, but doesn't think it's the right approach. She believes that the students should have a place to consume the cannabis. And why? Well, because it's going to happen anyways.
That's right, because it already is.
Correct. It already is. It's going to happen anyway, so why not just give them a spot to do it?
Yeah, exactly. Give students a place to smoke, she says. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, like we've said, this is not something brand new. Maybe it is for a very small segment of the population that has been blissfully unaware until now. But for the large majority, a vast majority of Canada and beyond, cannabis is part of life. And it has been either floated in or floated out or stayed in every person that has ever gone to school has had an experience with it. Whether they said yes, no, or otherwise, that was their experience.
Like, they banned alcohol and tobacco?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, it's not new.
No, it's not. So, yeah, that's right. And as I say, if you're allowed to smoke a cigarette, you should be allowed to smoke a joint in the same area or vice versa. And as you and I have discussed in the past, we just stand off to the side of that nasty cigarette stuff.
That's it. That's right. You just stand aside if you have to. And once again, universities, and they can make all the rules and regs they want and decide beforehand they're going to do this, that, and the other thing. But then I think it's got to come back to the same thing as, that they were talking about in Quebec. Well, Quebec said, well, we're not going to allow personal grow. And the feds came in and said, well, you can't stop it if it's federally mandated. So if we've got a law that's federally mandated, provincially upheld, then once again, how can we have a university saying no?
Well, they I guess in a way you could say, well, they can't smoke cigarettes at the university. Well, they can smoke cigarettes in the smoking area, so
they're giving you a smoking area. And if it's federally mandated, you can consume cannabis in a smoking area, then the university can't really say, well, no, you can't here, because it's already been mandated. It's the same argument up the line. You can't give me a right here and then take it away there.
Well, what about the argument from the university came back and said, well, this is on private property, it's not public land?
Well, you're allowing the right to smoke, so the right to smoke is inherently smoke anything. You can't mandate cigarettes, yes, and cigars, no, yes, and cannabis, no.
Well, there's always the first time if it doesn't exist now, right?
Absolutely. I'm just saying it's another fresh argument, just the same as the feds coming back on Quebec saying, no, you can't do that. You can't override federal law provincially. A university student could come up with much the similar argument on university policy.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more time.
All these things. There's so many things. Yeah, because this is all going through everything. Every aspect that people deal with in life, this will be going through everything. So there's all kinds of. Yeah, that's
We're
right.
going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Kim. I think that's it. We're done.
We're done for the night. Finally, woohoo.
Okay, all right. That's our Reefer Report for April the 10th to the 16th, 2018. And in closing, we'd like to say thank you for listening to our cannabis news brought broadcast. And if you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, relatives, and strangers. And until the next time, don't forget to educate, medicate, do not incarcerate.
Bark at you later.
What are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.